In this video, I'm going to be talking about what happens when your emotions disappear. So I have clients come to me often saying, okay, I was trying to feel my emotions. I was noticing what I was feeling and, some sadness or some anger came up. But then when I started to put my attention on it, it just disappeared. It kind of retreated. Like, what's going on? And I wanted to explain what this is, what it means, and how you can kind of work with it. So essentially, the emotion disappears because your nervous system doesn't feel safe to go there yet. And so when you start getting too close to it, it protects you by sort of withdrawing that emotion or blocking you from it, numbing you out to it. It can happen in all kinds of different ways. Some people feel it just disappears. Some people start feeling a bit numb, or if things feel a bit foggy or cloudy, they feel a bit disconnected. Their mind starts going quickly to distract them away from it. Often people can feel kind of blank in like a calm way. Like it kind of feels like you're calm, but something's a little off. These are all ways that the nervous system is protecting you from this emotion that's been deemed unsafe. And one of the definitions of trauma that will help us understand what's going on here is too much, too soon, too fast. So, when we're small and we go through some emotionally challenging event, it's like that shame or that anger that's being triggered in us it's too much than we can handle. It's too soon. We're not big enough to handle it. It's too fast. It's too much at one go. And critically, often we don't have the support we need to feel it, right? So it's just a protection mechanism to keep you safe from an emotion which at that time was so threatening. It was too much. And critically, the resistance and how this whole mechanism works is invisible, is unconscious. So I know in your conscious mind, you're like, hey, I want to feel that sadness. Where's it going? Like, I want to feel the sadness so then I feel better. I want to feel the anger so I feel better. And it makes sense, but that your conscious mind and the unconscious protection mechanisms have completely different agendas, and they function essentially, very separately in a certain sense. And so you can have these invisible parts of you that you have no idea about, literally no idea, that hold and believe that it's really unsafe to go towards certain emotions. And these parts are kept invisible for a reason, right? That's how they work most effectively. We're unconscious of like 99% of the really deep resistance and repression we have. And that's what's happening, when some sadness comes up. As you start doing this work, like the emotional healing work, emotions start to come up more. But then as you start getting in touch with them, you'll go towards them and then it disappears. And that's this invisible protection coming in to protect you against something that was at one time too much, too soon, too fast. So how do we deal with this? Because we want to feel that emotion so we can process it and it's not sort of, lurking in our subconscious, causing all sorts of problems for us. And the answer is essentially to create safety and to go slower. Because if it was too much and too fast, we need to go less fast. So here's a few ideas for how you can do that. The first one is to build safety and connection in the body. So you want to make it safer for you to be present in your body, to notice the sensations that are there and to feel these emotions. This is a practice that you build. It's a capacity that you build. One way is through resourcing. I've got a video on that. If you just go on my channel and search for resourcing, it takes you through different approaches to building safety in your body. And I think I'll create another video on that soon. But that resourcing video will give you a good overview. So I won't repeat myself here. Another great way is to use your attention wisely. So often the emotion will disappear when you're trying to go towards it too fast. So what you can do is you don't have to go all the way in straight away. Well, I won't make the joke. But you don't have to go all the way in straight away. You can put your attention just on the edge of it, right? So imagine there's some anger in your belly, right? And if you go right into the anger, it disappears. You could just find a distance from the anger where you can put your attention where it feels manageable, where it feels safe. So maybe it's 6 inches or 12 inches from the anger. If you put your attention there, it's okay. You can just about feel it. You can feel it vibrating and the heat of it, but you're not fully going into it. And you can find a place where you can feel it a little bit, but it doesn't disappear. And that's where you're growing. So that's where you're building your capacity as you're sitting there with the anger or with the sadness, and it's not disappearing, but you're also able to be a little bit present with it. That's that growth zone, where you're at the edge of your sort of comfort zone, as it were, where you're growing. And as you return again and again to that place, you're building capacity, and you'll be able to handle more and more of the anger or the sadness without it disappearing. You can also go back and forth with your attention. You could put your attention on the anger, then you can come back to something that feels more supportive, feeling your feet on the ground, going to an imaginary safe place, and you kind of go back and forth in this way. That's another way of sort of, again, mitigating or titrating the intensity of the emotion so it doesn't disappear. So it's not too much, too soon, too fast. Another way is to explore some of the beliefs around it so you can get a better sense of the protection. It's like, what does my nervous system fear is going to happen if I really feel this sadness, if I allow it? Maybe it fears that I'll get trapped there forever, or that I'll never stop crying. If I go towards this anger, maybe it's afraid that, I'll just lose, the other person will get even more angry. It'll just go that way forever. No matter how angry I get, they'll get angrier and I'll just never win. We have lots of deeply held unconscious beliefs about these emotions and what they mean about us, and it can be helpful to explore some of that. So just ask your body what it believes about these emotions. Another way that's kind of related is to explore the resistance or the protector parts. So you can almost ask them like they're little people. Like if you feel a bit of a block, like that numbness or blankness that I mentioned at the beginning, right? If you feel that there, you can just put your attention there and explore that explicitly. Like what is it? What's that blankness feel like? Does it remind you of someone or some time in your life? Did you feel this before when you were a kid? Did you notice this blankness? Like when your dad would yell at you, maybe you felt this blankness all the time, right? What does it fear? What does it need? Right? You can explore these different avenues that will help you. Ultimately, what you want to do is help it to be heard and to feel that blankness, which I'm taking as an example here, but it could be anything. Help it to feel heard, help it to feel felt. So you're letting the blankness be there. You're letting it resist. You're letting it protect. And also then to bring safety to it as well, to help understand what does it need. You can hold it, you can breathe into it. And then sometimes that protection, that resistance can start to soften. And then there's more space for the emotions to come up. And in this way, it's also helpful to pay attention. This is a little nuanced little trick. In the moment that emotion disappears, if you're in that state, you're there, you go towards it, the sadness goes. Pay attention to what's left over. Oftentimes you can spot the resistance or the protector part there. It can be very subtle. It can just be a real subtle blankness or a real subtle kind of slight numbness or sense of disconnect. And there's huge amounts of value in exploring it. It might seem so innocuous, just a tiny little bit of blankness, but if you let it be there and just explore it and just wait for it to open up, lots can come out of that. Like it can go into deeper memories or deeper parts of you, and then you can process those to kind of resolve those. And this is quite advanced stuff, by the way. I'm talking about this quite quickly. Like if you do want some help, just reach out with an email. Or to get some support with this kind of thing. Or I have plenty of other videos that go into more detail on some of these things I'm talking about if you just search for it. Then ultimately, to give you a bit of an idea of how this might work, you could see how you could bring these all together. So say there's a bit of an emotion coming up. Say it's anger. That's a common one that we repress. And you know that when you go near it, it disappears. So what you do is you might ground yourself first. You might just feel your feet on the ground. Hold your hands to your body just to give yourself a bit of support, feel a bit more grounded and held. Then you invite in some of that anger, and you might not dive in straight away. You might just put your attention just on the edge of it. You can just feel the heat of that anger, but you're not diving in fully. So you feel it there. You just put your attention on the edges of it, and you just stay there. This is good. You're growing, you're learning, you're feeling by being there. But then maybe you start to notice it starts to feel a little bit numb or a little bit blank, like the anger is kind of disappearing. So you just pay attention to that protector part that's starting to come in. Just go, hey, okay, I see you. It's okay, you can be here. You let that part be here that maybe feels a little bit blank. I'll just use that as an example. What are you afraid is going to happen if I feel this anger? It might respond. You might get a voice in your head. It's like, I'm going to get hit. They're going to hit me. It's like, okay, wow, I understand. That's just really validate it. It's like, I hear you. That's pretty scary. Maybe you can ask it, how old are you? You know, when was this part created? And you might get a sense of, okay, it's 7. You've got this sense of this 7-year-old you who's afraid of being hit if you let your anger out, right? And you can just really, really hold that part of you. Maybe ask it, what does it need, that little 7-year-old kid? Maybe it needs a hug to be taken out of wherever it is. There's infinite options here. I'm just giving a few examples of how you might, you know, just basically paying attention and just being kind and curious about this part of you. And as you keep just being with it, feeling it, listening to it, that blankness might start to soften, and then the anger can come up a little bit more. And then you can maybe go a bit nearer to it with your attention. Right now, maybe you can, you know, your attention's in the anger, and you can really feel the heat of it. And in this way, you know, hopefully this gives you a bit of an example of kind of the back and forth that goes on. And maybe then it feels a bit too much. You know, the anger starts rising up. You're like, that's too much. So you come back down to hands on the heart and on the belly, doing some regulating breathing exercises. This is the kind of ebb and flow of things. And in this way, you're going to build the capacity in your nervous system by doing these kinds of things to be present with these emotions, and they will disappear less and less easily, and you will be able to feel more and more of them and be present with them without them disappearing. And it's worth, just at the end, I feel like adding this one extra nuance. There's a subtle difference between an emotion kind of disappearing and processing. When it disappears, it feels like it slinks away. It's like a ghost that slinks away and just disappears. Like, huh? Where'd it go all of a sudden? And this is the opposite of processing. Processing an emotion is when you feel like you felt it fully. It's like it goes through, it washes through you. It's like every pore of that emotion, which I don't know why emotions have pores all of a sudden, but I'll roll with it. Every pore of that emotion has been felt and allowed. And then it's almost like it kind of dies and goes to heaven. You know, when you see in cartoons, like a body, like a ghost body just comes out of that. It's kind of like that. It goes up and disintegrates and integrates out of you. And then you feel it disappears, but in a very positive way. Like you feel that it's not disappeared. It's like marched through and gone off into the distance. So there's a subtle difference in feeling, but when it just disappears, it's not being processed, so it's going to come back. Whereas if you process it, it's not going to come back. I have more videos on how to feel your feelings. Useful ones would be the videos on how to feel your feelings, how to work with resistance. Would cover a lot of this in more detail if you wanted to know, and my video on resourcing. And if you want one-on-one support, just there's a link to book a free call with me in the description. I hope that was helpful. See you later.